Welcome back to Level Up. I'm John Cale. Really glad you decided to join again today. I hope you've been enjoying the other episodes that have been posted out across social media. Level Up is a podcast about understanding things that you may not know, learning something new every time you're here, or learning something new about things you do know. But the biggest thing about the podcast is that as you join in each week for about 30 minutes or so, that you leave having value and you have something new that will help you in your life with decisions and choices that you currently have to make. I want to tell you that you can also reach out to us at any time. You can find us across TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or other social media channels, as well as your main podcast channels with Apple and with Spotify. You can also reach out to me if you have comments. You can DM. In addition to that, you can send me an email. I know those of you in Gen Z probably are saying, what's email? We do still use it. You can possibly use it. And my email is levelupwithjohn@gmail.com. Level, L-V-L, upwithjohn@gmail.com. So I hope since the last time you stopped in for an episode that you actually have done something and taken some steps to better yourself and been able, I hope, to glean some information from what we talked about. You know, I started thinking about the episode today, and I started thinking to myself, what would be a word that would be sticking in my mind? And so for me today, the word is spring. Sitting here in Ohio yesterday, we had temperatures that were in their 80s, and everybody's looking for spring. We've had a very long, hard winter, cold, and still, even here at the end of April of 25, we are having still not the kind of weather that we should. But yesterday, it was 80-some degrees. And it was interesting because, you know, people go nuts and lose their mind when the temperatures change. You saw people riding their Harleys, their bicycles, the convertibles, right, enjoying the day, cooking out. You could smell people grilling steaks in the neighborhood, all kinds of fun stuff, right? You could have laid out and got sun yesterday if you wanted to. One of the things that I think, though, is, you know, we want good weather so badly because it's been such a long winter, and we're like, oh, I can't wait till the weather gets here and it's warm. But the one thing that we forget about is the reality of what comes with that warm weather, right? Because as soon as the weather gets warm, what starts happening? Weeds start to grow. We have grass that we have to mow. We have bugs, we have humidity, we have mosquitoes, right? So, you know, we're thinking so much about the positive side and what we're expecting with summer that all of a sudden when it comes and we have all those other things, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, I tell you that just as kind of an intro because our discussion today is around a word called expectations. That's going to be our subject today. And if I had to title this, I would say it would be Life Expectations, Happy versus Lose Your Mind. Life expectations, happy versus lose your mind. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. And I hope today when we're finished that you're able to understand a little bit more about how expectations can make or break a day or a week or a month, a year, or your lifetime. And giving you this information is maybe decades ahead of when you might be learning this lesson. So I hope you'll find value in it. So when I say the word expectation, what kind of feelings are you having when I mention that? I mean, are you feeling pressure? Do you feel pressure in your head? Does your stomach get a little bit upset? What exactly do you think and feel, right? So I thought, well, why don't we define what the word expectation means? If we're going to talk about that today, why don't we define what it officially means, the word expectation? So here's what the official definition of expectation is. It's a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future, but not a fact necessarily. Okay, let me read it one more time. It's a strong belief, expectation, a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future, not a fact necessarily. So what I find interesting here is we got to go deeper because the word expectation means that it's based on a belief. So what's a belief? So I said, well, we probably ought to go figure out what that is. So here's what a belief is. A belief is the acceptance that something exists or is true, specifically without truth. So a belief is acceptance that something exists or is true. And so let's go back and read expectation again. The expectation is a strong belief. It's a strong thing that you believe and accept as existing or true, right? And that will happen or be the case in your future, right? So that's what an expectation is. And it's all tied to a belief. One of the things that's very important for you to understand when we talk about this is that if you have unrealistic expectations in life, an expectation is I get out of bed and this is what I'm expecting to happen this morning. I get to work and this is what I'm expecting to happen. I go to eat and this is what I'm expecting when I order my meal, right? I go to look at a new car. This is the experience I'm expecting to happen. Well, when our experiences that we're expecting are not realistic, it can produce a lot of different things within our life. Like, for example, you can become very, very disappointed, right? We can deal with disappointment. You can become confused and kind of disoriented. You can become very frustrated. I think all of us would admit that there have been many times in our lives where we had an expectation of this is the way this plays out in my mind. My expectation is this is the way this plays out in my brain. This is the way this is going to go. And all of a sudden, the movie is not happening the way that we thought it would play out in our brain. It can also bring sadness and hurt into our life when our expectations are wrong. So let me give you a couple examples, a couple things to think about here, right? So let's talk about the relational side and the physical side. Let's just talk about those two things. And then I'm going to give you 2 key points today that we're going to talk about that I think will really, really help you in your life personally. So number 1, let's talk about relational expectations, right? What are your expectations with relationships in a variety of different ways, right? So let's look at loyalty. When you have a relationship with somebody, do you expect them to be loyal to you? And I guess I would ask you, what does loyalty mean? In a relationship, whether that's a friend or that's a romantic relationship, what's loyalty mean to you? That's an expectation, right? I'm expecting loyalty. What about looks? You have a certain expectation about what someone should look like in a relationship. This is what I perceive. Have you ever talked to somebody on the phone, and once you get off of the phone conversation, you have this picture in your mind of what he or she may look like, right? Like, this is what I think they're going to look like based on their voice, where the tone of their voice is, and how they talk. And then you've never met them, and then all of a sudden you meet them, and you're like, whoa, my expectation was not really what I thought it was going to be, right? They didn't look like what I thought. What about success? What about your expectation of what is success? And what does that mean to you? What about an expectation of being perfect? Having perfection in your life in multiple areas. Here is a quick news flash. That's not ever going to happen. You're never going to be perfect in anything because you're a human being, right? We're not designed to have perfection. You will drive yourself absolutely crazy trying to have perfection. Here's another one that I always need to be accepted and liked. Have you figured out yet that that's not going to happen? How many times in your life have you had people that smile? You might be at a party, you might be at some event, and people are so nice to you. And then you find out later that this person was behind your back just completely trashing you, right? Because they're just not going to like you. Not everybody is going to like you in the world that we live in. It's just not going to happen. So that's some relational looks. Let's look at physical, right? What are some of the expectations we have on physical, right? That I'm always going to be my best. I'm always going to be my best. I'm the best. I can be the best. You know, I used to fight with my son all the time when he was younger. Everything that he tried to do that was new for him, he used to always get so frustrated when he would try to do it and it would blow up and it wouldn't work. And I'd be like, dude, Den, you have to understand that you can't be the best the first time you do it. But there was this innate thing in him that was like, I got to be able to do it perfect. I got to be the best at it. And I'm like, that's not the way life works. You have to have experience. You have to have trial and error. You learn from your mistakes, right? How about I can do anything? Another expectation. I'm able to do anything. I can do it. Or, hey, I'm going to have the perfect hair, the perfect body, the perfect build, right? That's what I want. I have an expectation that that's what's going to happen. Well, what happens if you get sick? What happens if you get an injury in sports? What happens if something takes place that affects your ability to have the perfect body or the hair or whatever that is that you're looking for? You see, here is a fact, and I want you to really hear this, that we get into trouble with expectations when we forget to think about reality. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. We get into trouble with expectations when we forget to think about reality. Because you see, there is a big gap between our expectation of something and what will take place in reality. And what ends up taking place there is that if reality is different than what we're expecting to happen, our emotions get engaged and we lose our everlasting mind, right? I think all of us would agree with that. So life expectations really drive what kind of days we have, weeks we have, months we have. And so the key is that we've got to learn how to handle those, okay? So here are some real examples of expectations sometimes that people have, okay? A lot of people think about, well, I'm going to have, here's what I expect. I think we're going to be engaged and we're just going to be so happy. We're just going to love each other, and it's sweetie and honey, and we'll make up names for each other, and we'll have all these special little things, and we'll have our special little place, and it'll just be wonderful. We'll have our little marriage, and it'll be wonderful. Let's love each other, and we'll live happily ever after, right? And someday we'll have children, and it'll be so wonderful. The kids will love us, and we'll hug them, and we'll take them places, and okay, that's all great. Your expectation is wonderful. That's a great movie in your head, okay? And that's all good. But let me tell you what happens when reality hits, okay? Well, you get married, and now you have a place where you live with someone, and all of a sudden you guys begin to realize, man, the dishes are building up. The floor is dirty. Well, the trash, oh my gosh, the toilet needs cleaned. The shower needs, who's doing the laundry, right? And all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, I didn't think about that in my movie about my expectation of my future and my marriage. Well, because reality is, as part of being married in a relationship, you got to do all those things. So you got to figure out who's emptying the trash, who's going to take care of this, who's going to clean the bathroom, who's going to clean the shower, who's going to run the vacuum, right? Oh, by the way, now we have kids. Kids are wonderful. Nothing like kids. They're a gift from God, okay? However, when you start thinking about all the wonderful little things about the kids and how cute they are and dress them up and they're just so wonderful, right? I would tell you, get dogs first, okay? Most of the time I'll tell you, buy a dog and have a dog before you have children, because it's kind of a little bit of a primer to get you ready for kids. What don't you think about with kids? You don't think about the fact that you're going to be up all night long for a long time when you have a baby. Yeah, and you can't be like, I'm tired, I'm not getting up. No, because your baby needs to be gotten up, and they will cry and scream and wail and all of those things until you go get them and take care of them. And that doesn't just happen one night, that happens for multiple nights, for multiple weeks, for multiple months in many cases. See, that's something you don't think about in your story of expectation. Here, let me give you one. This is a true story, right? I was an older dad. And my son Denton was sent to me from above. He was a blessing that God allowed us to have at my age. And it took me a year actually to realize this is going to happen. I am going to have a new child in my life. And it was God's plan. And Denton was a miracle sent to me, a life raft for me in my life at that time. And it was all new. I hadn't had a kid since I was, my daughter, when I had her, I was 22. So she's now in college and, about on her own. And now all of a sudden I'm having a baby and a boy, not a girl, because you guys all know as girls and guys that it's different. Boys are completely different than girls. I love the girls. You can sit and talk to them. You go shopping with them, talk about their feelings. The dudes, they just want to jump off everything in your house. Everything becomes a weapon, and it's all about competition. It is a completely night and day situation. I had Denton. I was watching him when he was a little baby. We had some friends that came over to the house and they wanted to see Denton. He was a little baby and I had him and it was all great. I'm trying to be the great dad that I wanted to be for him. And I was holding Denton up in the air like this, about this far above my head. And he was looking at me and smiling and his little eyes were going around. And all of a sudden he got this kind of puzzled look on his face. And I'm like, oh, he's going to the bathroom. It's cool. He's got a diaper on. No, he wasn't going to the bathroom. He was going out of his mouth to the bathroom. And he threw up all over my head, like completely soaked my face, my head and I'm standing in front of these people who are there to see my son. And I was just like, what do I do? What am I supposed to do at this point? Do I drop him? Do I set him down? Do I take my shirt off? I need a towel. I need water. I need soap, right? That's not something you think about when you're in an expectation of your future marriage with children, okay? Those are realities that come, okay? One other thing I'll share that's really funny, if you've ever been out to eat and you have watched a little kid completely explode. I used to be one of those guys, some little kid, about 3 years old. And you're in a restaurant and some kid is completely off the rails, screaming, will not be quiet. The parents are like, you better shut your mouth right now. And the kid is like, it doesn't matter. He's not paying a lick of attention to his parents. Parents are losing their head. They're red. They're embarrassed. They don't know what to do. Ultimately, in that kind of a case, you have to take them outside and get them out of the picture. You have to get them out of the building, right? Why? Because they're 3 years old. All they know is, this is what I want. I don't care. I can't reason. I can't think. I don't know how to understand what you're saying. All I know is I want this right now, and I'm going to blow a gasket until I get it. Now, as a parent sitting there, I used to think, wow, man, I wish these people would get control of their kids. Like, what kind of parents are those? There's a kid's out of control. They need the discipline, right? Till I had a boy at my age and had forgotten what it was like to have little kids. And guess what Denton did? The same thing. And there I am going, I am that parent. He is losing his mind. People are looking at me like, hey, why don't you control your kid? Why don't you be a better parent? No, it is what it is. So those are a couple real examples of the way that movies play out for real, the reality versus the expectation of, hey, we'll be a wonderful, happy couple with children and everybody will listen and we'll just love each other every day so much we won't know what to do with ourselves. Okay? How about this as an example? She's hot. He's hot, right? Expectations in your relationship. Dude, she's amazing. Wow, is he hot? Look, he's ripped, right? That's all wonderful. But guys, listen, add 30 years to those bodies and the tattoos that used to be on their shoulders are now on their stomach. Or the tattoos that used to be on their neck is on their stomach, or on the top of their thigh is now on their knee, okay? My point is, over time, there's change. And sometimes you forget the expectation against reality, okay? So according to some recent research, as of this week, all right? So we're talking, most of the time when I give you guys stats, I've got the newest statistics about your generation and what's happening in the world right now with you. So according to this week, some of the stats that I've got, these are some of the expectations that you folks have in Gen Z. Number one, that you guys need to be successful very fast. That it's a sprint through your 20s. That's what you feel. I got to succeed. I got to succeed now. And it's all in your 20s. I got to do all this in my 20s. I got to be successful. My question is, why? Why do you have to sprint through your 20s? Your 20s are a decade of your life that really is the foundational piece of your adulthood. Now, I understand that school and high school and all that stuff is great, and you learn a ton, and it sets you up with a foundation that you can bounce off of and get answers from and understand some things, right, about life. But your 20s are really a foundational piece of your life that really helps you cement who you are and who you're going to become. Why in the world would you want to sprint through it rather than walk through it? And that's a problem because you feel the pressure around you from other people in your generation. Remember, from one of our previous podcasts, there's 68 million of you. So you're feeling the pressure to compete, to be successful like everybody else, to hit the thing and ring the bell. like everybody else. But you really don't have to do that because it's only your 20s, okay? You want to do it right. You don't want to be doing in your 30s what you should have been doing in your 20s, because you know what happens then? You just blew up 10 years of your life, okay? So another thing that you guys are concerned about is that you must always be okay. I got to always be okay, right? That being okay becomes another performance. I want you to think about that. If you think about what a performance is, right? Like if you've ever been in a play or you're in theater or you've done anything like that, you learn a part and then you step out onto the stage and you perform it, right? In many cases, you guys in your generations are saying, I got to be okay, to the point where you almost have to put up this act of being a performer to be okay. All right. That's a problem for you guys. It can cause a lot of issues. Another thing is that you look good always, that the norm for perfection is to be another filter, right? So you always have to look okay. You've turned it into perfection into another filter. I always have to look. Listen, I promise you, some of you girls get out of bed in the morning, you are not looking okay, right? Before you put your faces on, I promise you, you do not want anybody to see you, right? Guys, same with you, right? Your hair is probably 20 different ways. Your breath is absolutely horrible. Your dog runs from you if you talk to it because your breath is worse than his, all right? I promise you that you can't always be okay. You don't pop out of bed ready to go. Why do you think people wear hats all the time? Okay? It's not because of the sun. People wear hats because it's a bad hair day, both guys and girls, right? So you're not always going to look perfect, and it's not always going to be okay. The other thing is that your worth, the worth of yourself, is tied to productivity. And what I mean by that is that it's a cool trend to always be on the run. Oh, I'm so busy. Look at all I have to do. I've got to use every minute of my day to do everything, right? And it's almost that you feel guilty for resting, right? It's almost that you feel guilty for taking a break and just chilling for a while. So when we look at the expectations in your generation, this is another big thing that you guys, it's almost like there's a pride and you get a badge because you have no spare time left. You run nonstop. You have absolutely no time left for you or to take a rest and chill. Let me tell you something, all right? And my wife would probably say, I can't believe you said this in a podcast, but I'm going to say it, okay? Do you know when some of the best ideas happen for me in my life, where I actually hear things and get ideas, is in the shower? That's where I get things that have been, in many cases, a big turn of the wheel of my life and change direction. Why? Because I'm quiet. Nobody's got my attention, right? And I'm just thinking. I'm alone. And so you might think, well, dude, that's just crazy. But it's really true. And so I guess what I'm saying to you is it's really okay for you to take downtime. In a world where people want to work nonstop, listen, I'm not against hard work. I'm not against doing your job. I always tell my kids, all of them, I've told them, if you're going to take the time to do something, then you should, if you're going to invest any of your time to do something, do it with excellence. And what do I mean? Do it the best you can. Do it at the best level, as much perfection as you possibly can do. That's what you need to do. Don't just do it halfway and walk away. No, be a person who's known for doing something the best that you can, right? Take your time and do it. So my question to you is, do you associate with some of these feelings, some of these things that I just shared about your generation? Do you associate with some of those things? So I want to share the two big questions about expectations. This is like the core. This is the meat. This is the biggie of what I want to talk to you about today. The two big questions about expectations. Number one, where do they come from? Where do expectations come from? And are they mine or are they someone else's, right? Where do they come from? And are they mine or are they someone else's? So, number one place they come from is you, right? They come from you. So, I want you to think about this. Your life has been a long road. Think about your life to this point, think about 24 hours a day, all the days you've lived, all the things you've experienced, all the people you've met, interacted with in all walks of life. Think about all the things you've done. Think about the amusement parks you've been to, the theme parks you've been to, the plays you've been to, the schools you've been to. Think about the restaurants you've been to, the food you've had, the travel. What I want you to understand is so far, no matter how old you are, your life is a culmination of all of those particular experiences that you've had to this point in your life. So you are one of the first places that these expectations come from. Okay? It's like a trip you've taken in life, and all of these things have been mile markers in your life that you can look back on, and you won't remember them all because there's so many of them. The second thing about you is when you were a baby. When you were a baby, how was it that you gained expectations about care and about hurt when you were a child? Were you cared for in the right way? You know, did you lay and cry when you were a little baby and nobody picked you up to like, you know, soothe you and love you? And that hurt you and that affected you, and that turns into an expectation that is part of who you are that you don't even really remember because you were a little kid, you were a baby. What about your expectations on food? Think about eating. What's good food to you? What's good food to one person could be different than good food to another person. Are you a person who was raised and your expectation of food and a good time is we're going to go to the store, we're going to shop, we're going to get all this great stuff, we're going to bring home steaks or fish or whatever, and we're going to make it at home, and we're going to hang out and we're going to play games. And so to you, that's what food means. That's your expectation of food. But do other people, we're going to order out, or do you DoorDash? Right? I don't DoorDash. I know it's a big deal. My son wanted to DoorDash wings from Wingstop in Solon the other day. And I told him, I said, have you completely lost your mind? You want to order like 6 wings from Wingstop and have it DoorDashed here? He's like, I just want wings. Now, this is a 15-year-old guy, okay? There's a 15-year-old son. So some of you out there understand you have those kids. Some of you are still teenagers. You still want to do crazy things like this. But for you, that's what food means. That's what a good experience around that means, right? And what about your behavior? Expectations around behavior. We're still talking about where do these expectations come from? Number one, you. What about behavior? How were you taught behavior? What does good behavior mean? Who taught you that? And here's a better question. Who taught the people who taught you that? You know, a lot of times we are just actually a result and a product from our parents. And you could say, well, my parents, you know, they didn't teach me this, or they were jacked up or whatever. But in all reality, maybe nobody taught them. And it's just getting passed down, right? It's not something they did wrong. What about your hygiene? Okay. What about that? Where's your expectations on hygiene, right? Do you brush your teeth every day, right? I know teenage boys, maybe not so much, all right? But I think as you get older and you get into your middle Gen Z 20s, right? You get into that zone, you start to take more concern about, you know, as you get out of high school, you get a little bit older, you start to take more concern about the way you look. You know, what's my hair look like? What kind of fit do I have on? What kind of cologne am I going to be putting on, or perfume, right? So these are all types of things that are you is where some of the expectations come from. Second place they come from is society and relationships, okay? So in society, a lot of expectation gets put on you digitally, right? From television to radio to stream to music to social, churches, whether real or fake, right? There's a lot of stuff out there that has the name of something right, but it's really not, okay? When we look at relationships, what's a good one to you? What's your expectation of a relationship? Where did you get your expectation of a relationship? Guess what? It's on the journey that you've got to so far, and it's things that you've observed. It's things that you've watched on television, on movies. It's things that you've seen your parents do. It's things you've seen your friends' parents do. It's things you've been taught, you've read, you've listened to. All of that culminates and builds into what is your expectation of what a relationship should be, whether it's right or wrong. And my question to you would be today, when we think about a relationship with a person, whether friend or romantic, what do you look for in a relationship? Because it's all been based on all of those different things. If you've seen a jacked up relationship where there wasn't respect, where people didn't treat each other kindly, where there was physical abuse, right? That's going to be something that's going to play into your movie of what an expectation could be in your future. What about trust under relationships and our expectation of trust? What's it mean to you? Have you had people that you put complete trust in? Utter trust. I mean, like there was no question that this person would ever do something wrong or would betray you or would abandon you. And then all of the sudden, out of nowhere, they broke your trust, right? And now your expectations are blown up. Those are very, very real things. What about romantic expectations, right? So let's talk about you guys and girls out there, right? Where did you get, and what is the movie in your head from an expectation of what should happen when you meet a young lady or you meet a young man? What should happen, right? What should you be doing together on a first date? Where did you get that guideline that says, hey, this is what happens on my first date, right? Some of you, just being real, are like, hey, let's go out, let's eat, let's drink, let's party, and let's go have sex back at your place, okay? Is that really a good expectation, right? Is it really, really what you want? Are you looking for somebody that you can get to know and have a relationship with and find a common thread and do something together from a romantic perspective, right? What is it that is your compass in a relationship? And then the last area that these expectations come from is from our family, because they're so influential on us, right? What type of discipline did you get? Well, let me tell you about my discipline. And most of you will probably lose your mind about this. You know, when I was a kid, I got whipped. Some of you are going, what's that mean? I got spanked. And when I was young and I was in high school or in school, middle school, we used to have this thing called the paddle. And it was this big piece of wood with a handle on it. And if you disobeyed in school and you got into trouble, you got what we used to call a crack. They'd take you out in the hallway and make you bend over and grab your knees and crack you in the behind with this wooden paddle. And most of you are going, dude, you must be really old. Well, I'm not really old, but it's true that did happen. Okay, but I also got spanked at home. My mom used to whip me. I'd go to church and I would talk all the time, and she'd be like, when I get home, you're getting it. And my mom would whip me with a belt. My mom whipped me with a switch. Like she'd go out and she'd cut down a slim limb off of a bush, and she would whip me with a switch. And I was young, and I would run around the basement. She couldn't catch me. That was always fun because she couldn't catch me with the switch, right? I got my mouth washed out with soap when I was a kid. That was back in those days. Those were like kind of common things that people did when we got disciplined. So my question is, what kind of discipline did you grow up with? Probably none of that stuff, right? But you probably grew up with, did you get grounded a lot? Did people take things from you? Did you get treated poorly because you didn't meet an expectation of your parents or somebody who was over you? Those are all things that can be very, very impactful in what our expectations are. What about loyalty and engagement in your life? Did you have people that were loyal and stood by you and supported you in your life when you did something? Even if you did something bad, they acknowledged that, hey, you screwed that up, but look at the good stuff you did, right? And you can do better, right? They encouraged you and they supported you. And then here's one of the things I'll do on this podcast is I'm going to be very real and talk to you about stuff. And I would say to you, did you have people in your family that actually uttered the 3 words that most people all want to hear, and that is, I love you? Did you have family members that told you, hey, I love you? Did you tell your mom and dad? Did they tell you, right? Did all of these things happen in your world? So those are the areas of how we get the expectations that we have right now that play out in our mind but aren't reality. So number two, the second thing is, how do I manage these things without losing my mind? I can tell you at my age, I still have struggles managing expectations. Because remember what we said at the beginning, expectations are based on a belief that you have something is going to happen or it's going to happen in the future. And a belief is something that you believe is true, right? So if all of that is happening in your life, how in the world do I live my life every day without losing my mind and going off the rails? It's really hard. The first thing I'll tell you is you got to stop and slow down. And what I mean by that is that you have to be much more self-aware of what's happening in your life, that your expectations are here and realism is here. And the gap, right, is where the connection can happen to your emotion, because your emotion can be tied to the expectation. And when reality happens and it misses the mark, you lose your mind. So let's talk about this. Is it realistic to think that you'll never hit traffic, that you'll never have to waste time in traffic, and you'll be able to get to work on time every day? That is not a realistic expectation. Most of you have probably figured that out. Or to school, or to some place you need to get to, you're going to get frustrated as heck, because it's unrealistic to think that reality is you're never going to have a backup and you're not going to have a problem. Is it realistic to think that you can walk into a store and you can buy a new fit for yourself and you decide, you know what, I don't really need to try this on. I've never bought this brand before, but I don't really need to try it on. And then you get home and you realize, this is a different brand. They cut the clothes differently, and now it doesn't fit you, right? It should be worth the time for you to take and try that on. Is it really realistic for you to think you can put stuff off to the last minute and get it all done and everything be fine without something going wrong, your printer jamming, something breaking, right? And you allow no margin for error? Not realistic. We've all been there. We've had things that were due or done, or we needed to be somewhere and our car didn't work, or, whatever. We're in traffic or the machine broke down, okay? That's just reality. Is it realistic for you to think that you could post, that you're gonna post the best post in the world? You're so excited. You're gonna post something and it's gonna be so powerful, and you get 3 likes and one of them's your mom. Okay? Is it realistic? Is it realistic to think that relationship will always be happy ever after, happy you won't have any issues? It's not realistic to think that. And I want to throw one other thing in here. Is it realistic for you to negate and not think about your spiritual life because you are a physical being, but in addition to being a physical being, you also have a spiritual aspect? I can tell you it's very unrealistic for me with my son Denton to think, although Denton's a nice guy, he's a good kid, he listens, he does the right things. But what I can tell you is it's unrealistic for me to think that Denton will never do something crazy. Recently, Denton was walking down the hallway at school. They had done something in one of his classes with eggs, and one of his buddies was carrying all of these eggs. And Denton decided, hey, I'm just going to trip him. And so Denton tripped him, and he fell down with all these eggs, and they burst all over the floor. And I'm like, Denton, this is just not a good idea. So it's really unrealistic for me to have a 15-year-old son who likes to do things that are funny, right? Or in chapel, take his friend's shoe off in the middle of chapel and pass it around in the chapel underneath the pews, underneath the different places, so people can take his buddy's shoe and it'll end up on the other side, right? Those are not good things, but I have to be realistic and realize he's going to do things sometimes that might be a little center. So you have to adjust your emotion to what reality is. I want you to get that. You have to adjust emotion to what reality is, not what you think should happen. And if you can do that, it will keep your world from being rocked. So let me level up and end this for today, okay? I'm going to level up and tell you, look, expectations can make or break our day, our week, our month, our life. If we don't get the movie in our head that we think is going to take place aligned with our expectations so that reality and expectations match, it's going to make our life a lot of havoc, a lot of frustration, a lot of disappointment. These are also built by all our life experiences. So remember, you're going to continue to gather knowledge that will help you to manage your expectations. And the last thing I want to tell you is you need to stop and slow down and think that reality versus expectations and what those are, and make the adjustments. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have a much more happy, peaceful, and enjoyable life. Now, I want to tell you as we close today, I want to come back to the fact that you're part physical. We talk a lot about the physical, but I want to also come back and I want to remind you that you are a spiritual being. You have a spiritual element to who you are. And part of your expectations and part of your life is very, very important that you pay attention to the spiritual side of who you are. And I want to give you just a quick example of that. When we start out life and you're younger, everything is exciting and everything is new. And this is the way life's going to be. And I'm always going to have so much joy. But you find yourself, think about going on this journey. And some of you are on this journey quite a ways down now. But you get out 10, 20, 30 years and all of a sudden you think back and the happiness that I used to have, the joy that I used to have, and the carefree, and I'm excited and I love life. I just feel like somebody put a backpack on me and every so often they dropped a 10-pound plate into the backpack, a weight. And every single time it was more weight and another plate and another plate and another plate and another plate. And now life is so heavy that I can't hardly even move. I'm so down, I'm so discouraged, I'm so frustrated because I just feel so weighted down. Well, let me tell you something, right? Over life, you have a lot of things that will happen to you. And those things are things like guilt. They're things like regret. They're things like disappointment. They're things like shame. There are things that like unforgiveness. These are things that are plates that can drop into your bag and you keep carrying them. What I want you to understand is that that doesn't need to be the reality of life and expectation. The reason is that we were never meant to have to carry all that stuff. We were meant as a spiritual being so that we could develop, have a friendship, and talk to God on a daily basis, just like I'm talking to you. And you can give him those things and ask him to take all of those things about who you are and carry them for you, and ask him to help you with those things and that you can talk to him about it. I'm not giving you some heavy-duty sermon or something here, but wouldn't it be horrible to live your life for all of those years and come down to the end of it and down 10, 20, 30 years from now and realize I'm just so depressed, I'm so discouraged, and realize that there was a different way for you if you would have taken a moment and really considered looking at a different way and a different way to bring that expectation and reality together. And I just want to encourage you, and I want you to know that speaking to God and bringing him into your life is as simple as I'm talking to you now. There's no fancy way to do it. There's nothing special that you have to do. All you have to do is reach out and talk to him. And what I want to tell you is if you do that, or you have questions about that, I am more than happy to provide information to you about anything we've talked about today in the podcast, anything new that you've got a question on. As I said, you can DM me. You can reach me at levelupwithjohn.com. I'm sorry, levelupwithjohn@gmail.com. Levelupwithjohn@gmail.com. And level is LVL. I'm more than happy to interact and help give you next steps and help you through that. Why do I share that with you? Because I have walked and lived this and learned this lesson early in my life. And my life has been all up and down, and I've made tons of mistakes and blown stuff up and fail all the time. But I can tell you that this is a very real experience in my life and for millions and millions of others. And I would tell you to consider the fact that God just might not be who you think he is. You may have a wrong understanding of who he is. And my hope and prayer for you is that you'll find that. I want to invite you back next week. We are going to be in next week's episode on the initial road into adulthood, the good, the bad, the ugly, with Jacob P. as a special guest. And I hope that you'll come back. I hope that you'll do something this week to better yourself. And I also would ask you to please share the link with some of your friends who you think it might be helpful with. Thank you so much. There's only one you, and make a difference.